We have a new development in Trump's attack on mail-in ballots in California. The U.S. attorney there that Trump appointed, Bill Assayo, has opened an investigation, he says. In fact, he has sent a federal prosecutor to one of the L.A. County voting processing centers. He announced on X that he was coordinating with the FBI to investigate voter fraud regarding mail-in ballots because evidently they don't like the fact that they're still counting them. That and the Supreme Court is going to have something to say about mail-in ballots any day now. My name is Dina Doll with the MeidasTouch Network. Let's get into this. Now, first of all, of course, there is no actual evidence of fraud. Even Steve Hilton, the Republican nominee for California governor, has said that his team has looked into it and has no evidence of fraud. He says he doesn't like how long ballots take to count, and perhaps that is an argument that people can debate in California. After all, our elections are run state by state, and not only state by state, but county by county. But Trump decides he wants to say something about it. Laura Ingraham decides she wants to say something about it. Even Ron DeSantis, who has absolutely no standing, no reason as a governor of a whole other state to have any business about, or frankly, any opinion about how California chooses to have its own states, has put out his own statement about it, saying California keeps dumping votes. Odds are shifting because the vote dumps always seem to go one way. Count until you get the results you want. And Fox, when they were talking with Laura Ingraham, said endless counting. Okay, first of all, it's not endless counting. There are deadlines. But California, like a lot of states, allow people to postmark their ballots by Election Day. And it is true that 80% of the voters in California vote by mail. So there's quite a bit of mail-in ballots. For example, I vote by mail in California. I deposited my ballot, and by Thursday before the election, I received a confirmation the day before the election that it had been counted. So it took several days, and that's not even talking about dropping it in the mail. But that does not mean it is not complying with the law, and it certainly doesn't mean that there's some sort of fraud. But the U.S. Attorney Bill Assayo got his talking points from Trump. Trump in his statement said basically the right people aren't winning, right? Which he always reveals the truth of the matter, which is this isn't about actual democracy and safeguarding elections. It's about him wanting Pratt or Steve Hilton to win. Frankly, Pratt and Steve Hilton wouldn't win even if we eliminated mail-in ballots in the state of California. Yes, more Republicans vote in person, so it shifted. But even if everybody voted in person, they would not win. This is not even about that. This is about tampering, frankly, with the trustworthiness of mail-in ballots. The most disruptive thing you can do in a democracy is make people feel like their votes aren't counted and make people feel like other people are voting fraudulently. So the Republicans, not just Trump, DeSantis, Laura Ingraham, a lot of others being so careless about supporting and enforcing and protecting our democracy. But thankfully, we have Attorney General Rob Bonta in the state of California who has shown time and time again that he is forceful, strong defendant of the rule of law against Trump. And he has put out his own statement saying, my office has a presence on the ground right now, is monitoring the situation closely, and stands ready to protect voters and ensure California elections laws are followed. So grateful to have something like Rob Bonta there doing that work. The thing is, the reason why we know there's not widespread fraud is because a lot of people pay attention. The Los Angeles GOP is actually combating and what the National Republican Party is saying and saying there is no fraud. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party watch elections, campaigns watch elections. I was a volunteer for the Democratic National Party back in 2020 in South Carolina when there was new laws about mail-in ballot. And I spoke to different county electors who take things very seriously. But we don't just count on them taking it seriously. A lot of people watch it. So the Supreme Court is going to be deciding this term whether or not to limit mail-in ballots. The case, Watson versus RNC, is about whether or not ballots can be counted if they're received after Election Day. They want to change the rule. Right now, there's a bunch of states that say as long as it is postmarked by election day, it can be counted. And they are arguing, no, according to the laws, that when they say election day, that means the ballot actually has to be received by election day. This would basically do away with mail-in ballots because voters would not know how early to send in their ballots. I mean, the Supreme Court, even this term, said that you cannot civilly sue the post office for not even mailing your mail. And we have no control or power of how long the mail takes. I mean, military families obviously are against this because it would be even harder, 2.2 million living overseas, to know when to mail their ballots. But even the Democratic Party that wants to allow as many people to vote as possible, and mail-in ballots are very convenient for people who work days and cannot travel, or maybe do not want to travel to their polling center. They wouldn't even know what kind of guidance to give those voters, when to just know when to do it, when to mail it in. And most likely they would even start encouraging their voters to go in person. It would completely upend voting, really restrict voting. And also it is even if you thought, okay, I'm going to send it in weeks ahead of time, you might have a debate you want to listen to. I mean, my gosh, look what happened with the Eric Swalwell campaign. There's reasons why you may want to wait, or you're just still thinking, or you're still researching it. So definitely we're keeping an eye on this Supreme Court opinion that is expected any day now. Justice Amy Coney Barrett in the oral argument did ask the question, well, what about early voting? If you're saying it has to be by election day, does that mean that early voting shouldn't exist either? So we're definitely going to keep an eye on this. But I believe that Trump's comments, DeSantis' comments, Laura Ingraham, all of this coming about is odd right now because California never goes Republican. California's always been this way in terms of accounting a long time. I think this is a precursor because they are trying to give basically justification to the Supreme Court opinion that they think is going to come out in their favor and would be very unpopular. And so that way they can say, oh, see, we don't want to do mail-in ballot because look at the fraud in California. I think all of this is connected. So we'll be sure to keep an eye on this. One thing about the U.S. attorney who's trying to pursue this, he hasn't had great luck. He's the one who tried to charge with a felony, even went to trial against that tow truck driver who towed the ice truck for just a few minutes. And he tried to have him convicted with a felony. Jury came back and acquitted him. He knows how to do Trump's bidding, but just because you do Trump's bidding does not mean you actually win in the judicial system. And our courts have been showing up for the rule of law over and over and over, even if the Supreme Court hasn't. My name is Dina Doll. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to the MeidasTouch Network and follow the Mistrial Audio Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.